Good evening and welcome to the May 13th Civil Service Commission meeting. May I have roll call, please?
Commissioner Yakubian? Yes. Commissioner Manukian?
Here.
Vice Chair Devine?
Here.
For the record, Commissioner Yarigi and Chair Gazarian are absent tonight.
Okay. What's next, please?
Minutes. And Vice Chair, if I may, none of these minutes could actually be approved tonight.
Yeah.
So we'll just
Okay, then we'll go on to
once again.
next item.
Oral communications.
I have no cards, and seeing nobody approaching the podium, we'll close oral communications.
Recruitment and examination report.
Mr. Doyle.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, this is your recruitment and examination status report. This report kind of gives you an idea of what our recruitment load looks like as far as each recruitment and the staff assigned, dates of the filing, dates of exam. You see various people, including myself, on there. So at this point, we have looks like about 45. This list is updated weekly, and we've actually recently updated it this week after the agenda came out, and we're up closer to about 55. But nevertheless, it seems like things are picking up a bit, and you see quite a number of open exams and promotional exams. So if you have questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them. Otherwise, this is a note and file item.
Okay. Any questions? Seeing none, we'll go to the next item, please.
Eligible lists established.
Mr. Doyle.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, similar to the last item, this is a note and file as well. The eligible list that have been established since our last meeting, we have 4. One is a promotional. The other 3 are open. On the promotional list, it's good to see 8 applications for engineering position like this. This is a civil engineer 2, which requirement is to have licensed professional engineers. And as I said, it's good to have a candidate pool that sizable for a promotional recruitment. As you know, promotional exams are done internally, open only to city employees. So that one we had 8 candidates, and ultimately when the process was done, we had 6 who made the list. The other 3 were open recruitments. Obviously, the open recruitments, we see a higher number of candidates, and it's not unusual at all to have 300-400 applicants for some of these more popular positions. But as you can see, as the process goes through and the funnel gets smaller, we end up with a very small list of hopefully very well qualified people for consideration. So both of those, buyer 2 and building code specialist 2, we have eligible lists of 6. And then the last one is a lateral transfer recruitment we did for our police officer. And occasionally, most of our officer positions are filled through the recruit process, where we hire somebody in at the very, very entry level. But we do try our opportunities for attracting folks from other police agencies. And typically we see something like this where we'll get a moderate-sized number of candidates, and then after our process, we end up with a very small group. So on this, we have two individuals to choose from. So with that, if you have any questions on this, I'd be happy to try and answer them. Again, this is a note and file item.
Just a quick question. What's a buyer, too?
A buyer, Commissioner Manukian, works in our purchasing department, or purchasing section within the finance department. And it's just that, someone who procures items for the city, utilizing our purchasing process. It could be anything from office supplies to trucks and large vehicles. But
Okay.
Our purchasing department is in charge of that type of procurement. Obviously, we have very strict policies for purchasing items, and again, it's pretty important function for the city.
My wife would be great at that. She's overqualified.
A born buyer. Any other questions? Okay, move on to the next item, please.
Job bulletin for approval. Fire Chief.
Okay.
Mr. Doyle.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, this is a job bulletin for approval of our fire chief position. As you know, this is an executive level position, and we're about to embark upon a very significant recruitment to fill the shoes of Chief Scoggins, who left us last month, to take the head job in Seattle, which is quite an honor for an agency, for someone from an agency our size to go to an agency of that size. Given the importance of this position and the high-profile nature, we are embarking on an open recruitment. We want to cast the net as wide as humanly possible, and we are engaging the services of an executive search firm to assist us in this process. The recruitment process and the testing process itself will be controlled by the rules of the commission and the HR department working with the city manager, but the executive search firm will help us procure candidates from, as I said, the widest net possible. It's a very proactive process, whereas when we do a recruitment, we typically advertise, we try to do some level of outreach to get our qualified candidates in, but an executive search firm will has a traditional Rolodex and gets on the phone and calls people that they know that they think would make a good fit for our community. Hope to get some really outstanding candidates for this position. Ultimately, the search firm, we hope to have them bring us a small group of maybe a dozen or so candidates. At that point, we'll do a pre-screening process involving probably the city manager and myself, and then following that, we'll have our civil service process consisting of a professional panel, a community panel, and an internal organizational panel, and really put these individuals through a very extensive process to make sure they're the right fit for this job. As I described that process involving three separate panels, and it's really four interviews overall. The candidate will have to succeed in each of those steps in order to be continued. If they fail in one area, they will not earn a spot on our eligibility list. Upon your approval, we hope to post this on Monday and have it open for a little over a month through the end of June, and then engage in the selection process at that point. What you have here is the bulletin, which under our rules do have to go before the commission for your approval. The executive search firm, he does put together kind of a fancy brochure with lots of pictures and a lot of information about the Glendale community. All of both the bulletin and the brochure will be fully consistent with our approved class specification. So if you have any questions on this process, I'd be happy to answer them. Mr. Ochoa is here as well, if you'd like to have him say a few words.
Do we have any questions?
Yeah, actually, I do. I was wondering about the executive search firm. I mean, this is the first time I'm seeing something like that. So is that pretty standard for an executive level hire, or is this something that's a little bit more unusual? And I see Mr. Ochoa walking up.
Either Mr. Doyle or I could probably take that one. Good evening, Commission. For executive searches, yes, to get a headhunter firm, an executive recruitment firm, particularly for higher profile executive positions, so your police chief, fire chief, community development director, nothing against community services or an internal service of finance, sometimes even in HR, but the internal service departments or even the smaller departments, maybe we would run those through HR, but for something that's more high profile, it would not be uncommon to use the services of a firm like this. So for example, when we recruited Chief Castro, we used actually this firm.
Oh, okay.
And so it's not very uncommon at all.
All right.
And ever since I remember, every single one of going back, we've always used firms. So,
Unless we hire from within, direct appointments, but typically we do use the firms. And as I said, the process is still controlled by us, under the rules of the commission and everything like that. But these folks do a very proactive search.
It is rather surgical in that respect. So we're looking not just for a cattle call to get everybody and their brother or sister, but the idea of to go and run through a list of highly qualified, probably sitting fire chiefs to come and apply for this position, considering the size of the organization.
Okay,
Will this
thank
be
you.
a nationwide or a certain geographic area you're limiting to,
It
say,
will-
the western states or whatever?
It will be deemed a nationwide search. If history is any indicator, it'll be largely drawing from California and the West. California is such a unique animal. People, the way that they do, especially in this case, firefighting, back east or even in the Midwest will be different than California. And California's laws, rules, and what have you will probably mean that the majority of the best candidates will come from California, maybe Arizona, Nevada. But I think it's going to be the American Southwest.
Thank you. You have a motion?
Move to approve?
Second?
Unanimous? Next item, please. Thank you, Mr. Choa.
Class specification for approval, revenue series.
Mr. Doyle?
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, this is a class specification series for approval. This is a new series within the Finance Department dealing with revenue. And we've had a revenue manager classification since 2009. In fact, the gentleman is here sitting in the back, Mr. Armand Harkalian. What we like to do is put a greater emphasis on the revenue side of things. We spend a lot of time talking about how we spend money, through the budget process and what the money goes to. But I think in the past few years, a greater focus has been placed on the revenue side, and that's taxes, fees, licensing, and those types of things that truly help fund the government and all the good services that we provide. If you happened to be watching the budget study session yesterday, which I'm sure all of you do that on your free time. Quite a bit of time was.
I recorded.
I know Mr. Chair does, but quite a bit of time was spent on addressing fees and what's appropriate and what's not for various things. And again, it's a very important mechanism for funding the services that we provide. Anyway, at this point, we do have the revenue function, and but we don't have the positions underneath. And what we're proposing to do is create a series that would start with a revenue associate, which is a sort of an entry-level type position in this series, revenue analyst and senior revenue analyst. And we're not going to fill all those positions. In fact, I think the intent would be right out of the chute to probably fill one position, probably at the analyst level. I'm not sure if we're doing an open or promotional process with that, but nevertheless, we would like to bolster this unit within the Finance Department, and that's ultimately why we're bringing this before you. If you have questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them. Ms. Martin worked on this, but she's out ill today. Ms. Unanian is here as well, and Mr. Harkalian is here if you have any specifics on what a revenue manager does. So,
Questions? I do have a couple of quick ones. Are these new positions, or are these reallocation of existing positions?
First of all, these are new classifications that are being established, and I'll have to ask Armand if we have. I know you had at least one person reporting to you before who's not with us anymore. Do we intend to fill this promotionally or
Sure.
some other means?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the Commission. As Mr. Doyle indicated, this will be a new series we're recommending. However, moving forward, we're asking, again, we'll be filling one position. That would be for the revenue analyst, and that's actually a reclassification of Buyer 1 position. It's a vacant Buyer 1 position that basically will be reallocating to fill the revenue analyst position.
All right, so there are no new positions or bodies being put into the
No.
the department?
Yeah, there's nothing new. It's just a reallocation.
Okay. And Mr. Doyle, does this have to go through City Council first to get the funding approved for the upgrades, or how does that work? Did council have to approve these positions before we act on it?
If I could address that, we actually went to council back in December as part of our finances reorganization, and so that the series has already been approved by City Council, and we're here today asking for your approval. On the funding, we're going through the budget process right now, so for 15-16, it's already been included. Part of our recommendation, but that's not going to be voted on until June 2nd as part of the budget adoption. And actually, we have the public hearing next Tuesday.
Okay.
So, if I understand, we're essentially trading a vacant Buyer 1 position for this position, which has a little additional cost to it, and that request is going through the budget, and this will be for the 15-16 fiscal year. Okay.
That's correct.
Move to approve?
Second, or do you have a question? on
Yeah, I do have a
I'm
question.
sorry,
I mean,
I thought-
no, I mean, because now in light of that, then isn't this almost premature? Wouldn't you want to have the budget decided first, the June 2nd hearing, and then do this, or does it matter?
No, what we're doing today is establishing a series. You're not approving the position itself. So whether it gets approved or not, this is what we're putting in place for the future.
Got it.
So.
Well, in that case, I guess second.
Thank you.
We have unanimous consent. Thank you very much. Next item, please.
Civil Service Commission, staff comments.
Have any comments?
Mr. Chair.
Okay, go ahead.
I would like to just congratulate Commissioner Yakubian and Chair Gazarian, who is not here tonight, for their leadership and stewardship with the recent commemorative events. As everyone knows, it was the 100th anniversary of the Armenian genocide, and both members of our commission happen to be co-chairs of all the various activities that occurred over the course of the last week of April. And everything I heard about all of the events, that they all went off very, very well. And I think it's a tribute to both of you. I was hoping Garo would be here as well, but I do want to congratulate you and on behalf of the city for your leadership with that.
Absolutely.
Very, very important event for this community. So,
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Well, this will be the last time I let you go first, Mr. Doyle, because that's exactly what I was.
I'm sorry.
That was my first comment. You stole my thunder. However, you said it much better than I could have said it, and I'll just echo what Mr. Doyle said. I wanted to comment specifically on one of the events at the Alex Theater. I've been going to those for a number of years, and they've been good. But this one was terrific in terms of the talent you got, the keynote speaker, the entertainment, the documentary, the movies. Everything was superb. And as a non-Armenian, I really learned a lot more.
Armenian?
Oh, I didn't tell you.
Oh, my gosh.
I learned so much more from that event about the whole process and what happened than any other events I attended. So again, I want to echo Matt's congratulations and thanks for a job well done.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate those comments. We are also, I know Garo and I are very happy that everything went seamlessly without incident, and was generally a great turnout both for the march and also for the Alex Theater event. Thank you, Art.
Okay. I do have one other comment. In the budget hearing yesterday, I did catch a little bit of it. They were talking about, this occurred in the budget portions for both HR, management, and the city attorney regarding changes to procedures in the civil service hearing process. And I know that we were looking at a couple of them, or a couple of them had been brought to us in terms of the GPOA and the fire union changing the makeup or the conduct of their hearings, going from us to a hearing examiner type scenario. And my question is, are there other changes? Because in the wording and those notes, it's kind of ominous. I didn't know whether they're going beyond that and changing other procedures that we are handling now. So I wondered if you or perhaps Ms. Farpetian could let us know, or let the commission know, what changes are in the future for us.
Mr. Chair, I can answer that, and this is a goal that was put into effect for both of our departments. It's really having to do with the expeditiousness, if that's the right term to use, of hearings. And this is something that came up a while back. It's not, the idea would be not to change the makeup of hearings or anything like that, but really look at ways to explore moving them along more quickly. And I know, there'd be no argument from anyone on this panel. That's really what the intent was. And we've been fortunate to not have had many hearings lately, knock wood. But the recent history that we've had is that they do tend to drag on for a variety of reasons, and we all know those reasons. Many of them, involve the appellant. Sometimes it involves the appointing authority. But I think what the city manager had in mind was exploring methods of facilitating that process through either more strict deadlines, limits on numbers of witnesses, those types of things, as opposed to any type of real structural change. And that's my understanding of what the objective would be. And if Ms. Farpetian has any additional thoughts on it, but
I don't at this time, and we are at commissioner comments, so maybe this would not be the appropriate time to explore those changes, and maybe we can.
I just want to make sure my pay is not getting cut.
Going to be doubled.
Okay, that's okay, no problem.
Okay, that answers that. And with that, do we, any other business?
Move to adjourn.
We're adjourned.
Second.